Every JoJo part has a main theme. The deeper we get into JoJo, the more themes and more complex the writing gets. Steel Ball Run, despite being known as one of, if not the definitive best part of JoJo, still doesn't have a main theme? That's not a bad thing, because Steel Ball Run has a lot of themes. So recently I've been on the Steel Ball Run appreciation time. I already made a Johnny Joestar video with fellow YouTuber Shuckmeister, and I made a video understanding the villain of part 7, Funny Valentine. So I thought I made a video about the themes of Steel Ball Run, featuring some good friends of mine as well as voice actors. Riverdude, the living meme himself and a fellow Villain Saga appreciator, as well as Schroder. Schroder?
It's Shroud or Schroder?
Shroud.
Like shrimp. I am joking, my friend.
The individual who single-handedly is responsible for the best thing to come out of the JoJo community, Project SBR. If you're here just to see someone, like a specific person, here are the time stops of when everybody starts talking, so skip to that. Being invested in making these long videos about series that I hold deeply as my favorites is great, but sometimes you can get boring of my European accent, so having people to work with is amazing, especially when they are voice actors, and more importantly than all, they are funny. I'm not funny, you're funny. With that being said, the mic is to Riverdude. Voila!
What is nationalism? Nationalism, as defined by Merriam-Webster's dictionary, is loyalty and devotion to a nation, especially a sense of national consciousness exalting one nation above all others, and placing primary emphasis on promotion of its culture and interests as opposed to those of other nations or supranational groups. In essence, nationalism is a favoritism to one's country, its ideals, and everything that makes up said country. Nationalism in and of itself isn't a bad thing at all. There's nothing wrong with loving your country. Same goes if you don't like your country. We are free to think either because neither is 100% true or 100% wrong. Not one country is inherently the best country, because it's all a matter of perspective and personal experiences. So even though nationalism by itself isn't a bad thing, it's important to know the distinction between someone who is a healthy nationalistic and someone who is obsessive nationalistic. Healthy nationalism is like what I've already described, a simple love for your country and a want to promote its ideals and values to others. Obsessive nationalism, however, is when a love for one's country becomes so strong that said person puts their country on a pedestal, free from all criticism, and treats any heresy against it as evil and wrong. An obsessive nationalist also has a drive to not just promote their country's values, but to actively force and subjugate others to those ideals, even if they don't want to. Because in a nationalist's eyes, they know what's best for them. Them and their country hold the keys to a better life. Salvation, if you will. This has been a driving force for conflict throughout history. From Christians wanting to take back the Holy Land from the heretics in the Crusades, to the Soviet Union's forceful spread of communism throughout Asia, or a rejected art school student who wanted to make Germany great again. Obsessive nationalism is the disease that may appear nice and friendly on the surface. You may even think they're right in a way. But it eventually devolves into nothing more than a power hunger and malice towards those deemed inferior. Most of, if not every, villain in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure suffer from a massive ego. They are proud, jealous, and spiteful of those who they think are inferior to them. Early on, these traits were obvious, and the villains didn't hide the fact that they were selfish and cruel. They knew it, and they were proud of it. However, when Part 4 came along, the villains became less boastful, and they believed that they truly deserved what they strived for. Kira believed that he deserved the quiet life, and Diavolo deserved the Requiem ability. However, their egos are what eventually failed them. But then came Pucci. Pucci wasn't wanting to attain heaven for just himself. He wanted it to make the world a better place, a world where no one was shackled down by their fate. But his goal was like that of a religious fanatic, wanting to save everyone from something that they didn't need saving from. No one asked to be saved from fate. Only Pucci wanted this for himself. But he fooled himself into believing his goal was justified by saying it was for the good of all humanity. As you can see, the villains have progressed a lot since Dio. They're more complex and interesting. They, like onions, have layers to them. And this all cultivated into the best villain in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, the 23rd President of the United States of America, Funny Valentine. Funny Valentine is a proud and true American down to the bone. His entire life has been spent serving his country and fighting to make it the place he always envisioned. A gold standard, the perfect country for everyone, the modern-day example of the American dream. To the American people, President Valentine is a wonderful leader who has led their country through prosperous times. So much so that along with Stephen Steele, he created the Steel Ball Run race, which has led to an increase in American tourism and commerce unlike anything they'd ever seen. To everyone, he's a great president. But behind the scenes, we see a different character. Valentine is cold, harsh, calculating, and ruthless, not hesitating to kill those that oppose him in his dream for a perfect America, even sacrificing the safety and lives of the American people just to achieve that dream. He is only one power imbalance, one Supreme Court decision, one holy corpse away from becoming a ruthless dictator that's willing to conquer the entire world to make it a better place in his eyes. Valentine is a textbook definition of an obsessive nationalist. Much like President Woodrow Wilson, he believes that America is God's chosen country and that it's his divine right to spread his country's values to the rest of the world. He decides the course of history because he was the one to grasp the first napkin. His divine right with the corpse proves that he and his country are worthy to change the world for the better. Valentine is the most dangerous type of person, one that believes beyond a shadow of a doubt that they are correct and that any action taken towards their goal, no matter how heinous, is worth it in the end. The ends justify the means, as they say. Valentine believes that to make the world a better place, he has to make America a better place. And the Holy Corpse is just what he needs to make that happen. But how did this obsession start? What made Valentine so determined to save the country that he loved so dearly? It was simply because of one man's unwavering devotion to his country and his countrymen that inspired Funny to be the man he was. His father. Funny's father is a great example of someone whose nationalism is used for the good of others, and a fantastic counterpoint to what his son perverted as nationalism. Mr. Valentine was a member of the US military, who was eventually captured by enemy soldiers in an unnamed war, and was tortured for months to reveal sensitive information about his country. However, throughout all the torture, the pain, and the suffering, he never squealed. He stayed quiet till the very end, protecting his country's secrets, and never once betraying the values that he held so dear. Funny was 7 years old when he found out about his father's bravery and his self-sacrifice for his country. When he was told about all the terrible things he went through by his father's friend, he was in awe of what he had heard. After the soldier told Funny the story about his father, he finished by stating these words to the young boy. "Patriotism is the most beautiful virtue in the world. Even animals risk their lives for the sake of their children. But risking one's life for pride in their country, and thinking of it as an extension of protecting one's family, is only a nobility of humanity. A kind of heart completely different from a religious fanatic." This entire phrase defines what Funny Valentine has strived for: to be the man his father was, the man who put his country above all else to protect those he cares for. However, Funny cares for no one, not himself, his wife, or even the people he says he wants to protect. Funny is in love with one thing and one thing only: America. This leads to a vicious cycle where Funny wants to put his nationalism over everything else to protect his country and the ideals he believes to be right. It's a cycle that leads to hatred, bigotry, power, and above all else, corruption. Corruption of the mind, corruption of the soul, corruption of America.
Perfect transition, we're gonna talk about one of the main themes of Steel Ball Run, fatherhood. The concept of this theme got majorly exposed to the normie public eyes by this YouTube video. But with that being said, it actually has been around for a while, and I think it's a great theme that resembles everything that Araki was going with writing SBR. Besides the main characters, all 5 main characters of Steel Ball Run and their upbringing, their parents and their fatherhood especially, can resemble their conclusions as human beings. And you can even stretch this and say that this is for the entirety of the cast. I think Araki was trying to say that no matter what kind of upbringing we have, some of the stuff that we are unconsciously told by our circumstances and upbringing will stay with us forever. We choose what to change in that and become individual, but with that being said, we can never change all of it. Some of that will be with us forever. So whenever you end up like Funny Valentine or Gyro Zabelli, hoping you don't end up as either, it's up to you. Next up we have the CEO of Project SBR. The mic is to you, my friend.
The Wild West. The final frontier. At least until we figured out space was a thing that you could go to. I'm gonna level with you guys. I never really understood the Wild West. I don't get why people were so obsessed with cowboys. Growing up, it just wasn't my thing. I didn't really get it, and I only got it when I went out west recently and I learned about how fucking big it is, and that's why everybody wants to get on a horse and just go out there. So, I always found it interesting that Steel Ball Run was set in the Wild West, because first off, you take a look at parts 3 through 6, and they're set in the modern day. They're the modern man's JoJo. And for Araki to just step back, he was able to step away from that mold he was creating for himself by having to think of something recent, something new that he can make. A gang story, a prison story, those are all modern ideas. But by creating the new universe and being able to go back to the Wild West, he was able to tell a new story, something that wasn't seen in JoJo. Because there's a lot of material that have faded out with time. You can't tell a Western in the modern day because there is no more Wild West. So what we wind up seeing with Steel Ball Run is Araki putting the signature JoJo twist on a genre that's tried and true, and that's why I think it works so well, because it's something we never expected. Imagine being there when Steel Ball Run was coming out and going, "What the hell, Araki? You're making a Western? What the hell is this?" But here is where I've been leading you all on, and you're all fools. Steel Ball Run isn't a Western. In fact, Steel Ball Run is a sports manga. You see, the Wild West does play into some key scenes, one of which being Gyro's infamous standoff with the thief at the very beginning of the part. But as soon as they begin the horse race, it is no longer a Western. It is in fact a sports anime, as they race with their horses across the continent, and they get into the intricacies of horse riding and the intricacies of being a jockey. But this is where I fooled you again. You gotta pay attention because I'm lying to you. It's not a sports manga, nor is it a Western. It is a political drama too. Because, as you can see, with the politicians like Funny Valentine and Steven Steele to an extent, you gotta remember that politics are the true evil of this world. And we gotta remember that nationalist thinking, like put America before every other country, is inherently evil. Funny Valentine was not the good guy. I'm going on a tangent here, but my point is clear. My point is crystal clear. That Steel Ball Run is neither a Western or about the horse race. It is about politics, which is why I fooled you once again. You see, Steel Ball Run was never about all 3 of those. Steel Ball Run is a Christian manga. Not only does it tell the benefits of being a saint and the story of Jesus Christ! Actually, now that I think about it, I was lying again! What? What the fuck? It's not even a Christian manga! It's a Mormon manga! Don't you get it? Only the Mormons are the ones who think Jesus Christ went to America! And even though Araki put his famous signature JoJo twist on it, it's still Mormons! There is no other reason for Gyro Zappelli to get as many bitches as he does! Because it's a Mormon story! I have done it! I have finally proven that Steel Ball Run is not a Western! It is not a horse race! It is not a politics piece! Nor is it a Christian manga! It all goes back to the Mormons! I told you! And no one listened! Anyways, adinplore, it was great to be here. I hope I was able to help. I will never do this again. Thank you.
That is why you fail.
Jesus Christ! That was by far the best thing I ever heard in my life. Okay, the rest of this video is gonna be boring now. What? I mentioned this on my Johnny Joestar video, but the theme of freedom is more related to Johnny as a character. Freedom to Johnny is represented through the race, specifically through riding the horses themselves. Before the race and after the race, Johnny wasn't quote-unquote free. True freedom came to Johnny during the race while he was riding the horses with Gyro. Sure, he didn't have his goal at the time, neither did he have his titles, but freedom can only be found to Johnny while he's searching for number 0. Watch my Johnny video if you want to know more. This is also one of the main themes of Steel Ball Run, and it's actually the hardest to explain but the easiest to understand. It's easily to say that Steel Ball Run is the part of JoJo that characters are the most morally questionable. We morally question even our protagonists. For a shonen manga turned seinen, this isn't really usual. That is because Araki was going for the theme of selfishness and selflessness. What I like about Steel Ball Run is that Araki is just trying to claim that the character is selfish and is selfless. He's not trying to go to the transition to make the protagonist bad and the antagonist good. No. Characters in Steel Ball Run are extremely human. We see their human side and we understand their actions. For the most, we relate to them. I think that this is a yin and yang situation. No human is truly selfish and no human is truly selfless. But all humans fall between selfish and selfless, like yin and yang, so we both have that. Some are more selfish, some are more selfless. But Araki through Steel Ball Run presents the idea that the only people that can win the Steel Ball Run race are the people who can balance this, who can balance being selfish and selfless, like yin and yang. This is metaphorically referenced through Gyro trying to defeat Diego in the race, where Diego has more hunger, aka he's more selfish, he wants desire, and it's very easy to understand and grasp that, so Gyro tries his hardest to defeat, and there are times where Gyro, even if he tries his hardest, he can't. But later he learns something, and most importantly I think that he has now something to lose, and what he has to lose is Johnny. He went into the race for a selfless deed, but now he became selfish in a way that now he has something to lose. And by doing that, he can finally balance that and win a section of the race. Gyro obviously didn't win the race, but even whoever won the race at the end, he didn't win the race either. Bokolotto won the race. Why did he win the race? Because he was the pure example of balancing selfishness and selflessness. He isn't the only character that you can define like that, and there are actually some characters that can be argued morally good, but through their actions they fall into categories that depict that they fall more in one side than the other. Like Sandman, who is willing to sacrifice the goal of the race for a shorter detour, which obviously didn't work for him. Or Johnny, who still learns to care about Gyro, but his desire is full in his heart. And Valentine, who through his entire life thought he was a good guy, but He's not. Also, Araki is presenting a very true human fact. And that is the fact that the hunger you get from being selfish can be exponentially stronger than the hunger that you get from being selfless. That is why Diego is just like inspired the whole time. He's the only one that doesn't have anything to lose specifically. Doesn't really have to save anyone. But he's still a fucking monster. Because being selfish is like work. It's a human thing. Is he bad for it? No. Diego is bad because he's a fucking piece of shit, not because he's selfish. The relationship that Steven Steele and Lucy Steele has throughout the Steel Ball run is one of the most pure thing that Araki has ever written. In a sense of character, I think it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Steel Ball Run is a manga that tackles a time of Western, a time where the laws and the rules are different, a time where a lot of things that today are socially unacceptable and just morally disgusting back then were just casual. And from my understanding of this situation, which is pretty graspy by doing research and by using common sense, I think that the relationship that Steven Steele and Lucy Steele has is absolutely perfect. Steven Steele is a man that not only does an act of selflessness to redeem himself and to make himself feel worthy, but also because he needs it. Lucy Steele to Steven Steele does not represent the casual love. It's unconditional love in a way, almost platonic in a way. It's the love that he needs in order to hide his weakness. Because necessarily speaking, Steven Steele is a very weak person, but in the eyes of only, he has to appear as a strong person. And Lucy Steele is the only person in the world that can see that weakness as well as help him. Also to Lucy Steele, Steven Steele literally means everything, because not only he saved her from the worst life she can imagine, but also gave her hope and a future necessarily. It's a beautiful tale of two flawed characters accepting each other. It will probably be pretty bad when the anime comes around, because when the SJW see this, they're just gonna comment very bad things, but I personally think that this is one of the purest things Araki has ever written and should be not taken out of context, because they both as characters are very good, and as well as this relationship that was added represents unconditional love in Steel Ball Run. Tony Valentine represents a strong leader. Like I mentioned in my Valentine video, he is a person that believes in himself, thus he makes people in his fictional world believe in him, and sometimes he even makes people in our world believe in him too. He's a character so believable in the fictional story that Araki writes that the fans still think that he is a good guy. Like I got comments on my Valentine video pointing out how he's the perfect president. In my opinion, Jaira was the villain. I'm like, what the fuck are you reading? But at the same time, I completely understand them, because he was that good, that convincing. Valentine was a strong leader, a person that whatever he said came out of his heart, and despite him being a selfish human being, he believed what he said because he thought he was right. He didn't manipulate himself because he didn't know he was wrong. Steven Steele is the complete opposite of Valentine. Steven Steele recognizes his own hardships, and with recognizing his own mistakes and some of the bad stuff he is saying and some of the bad stuff he's doing, he also is open to weakness. He's not a delusional person. Only through seeing the bad in you, you open weakness in you, because weakness is only there when there is place for it. Valentine and Steven Steele represent the idea of one being the complete dangerous person who believes in himself, but also happens to be a very strong leader, which you cannot dispute, and the other being a sympathetic human being with a lot of flaws who can't really think for the greater good, but more recognizes the small mistakes he does. Thus he's open to a lot of weakness. The strong and weak leader concept. Friendship is the main theme of anime as a medium, apparently. I honestly believe that Johnny Joestar and Gyro Zeppeli are the best duo in manga. That comes not only because they're cool together, they have these fun moments, but also because they after all are improving each other throughout the story. It's not that only Gyro is teaching Johnny. Like I mentioned in my Johnny video, I know I'm referencing a lot to my other video, but like I mentioned there, is that the story doesn't just give Gyro all this wisdom, but in fact Gyro learns throughout. All the lessons that Gyro gives Johnny, some of them he knew, some of them he knew just literally, but metaphorically speaking, Gyro was only able to give the lessons after him progressing throughout the Steel Ball Run race and understanding more about the idea of moving on from something, that being his family and the concept of your come up and circumstance, to something bigger, and that bigger thing being the freedom he got from meeting Johnny and from joining the race. Seeing two broken characters with different circumstances that all are passionate about their goals, who they together are experiencing the ideas of not only hardship, but it's a coming of age story about accepting the adult world or moving on to adult world. Not literally, but metaphorically and spiritually moving to the adulthood. It's a great concept, and ultimately speaking, Gyro and Johnny will forever remain my two favorite characters, favorite duo, favorite characters, not only in JoJo, but in manga. They're amazing, man. They represent the concept of platonic friendship the best. Or do they? I know Araki wanted to do more with them, but come on, man. Like, we kiss the homies sometimes, you know? Growth is essentially the main theme of every coming of age story. Think of a great coming of age story and the main theme will be growth. In Steel Ball Run is only for our main characters, essentially. For our 5 main characters. I think that Steel Ball Run does it differently because our characters only grow through desire and sacrifice. All of these characters have desire to achieve something. And they all sacrifice a lot for that desire. Diego sacrifices others. Hot Pants sacrifices her brother. Valentine just keeps sacrificing others with the excuse of his dream. Gyro, he committed the ultimate sacrifice by giving his life for Lucy and Johnny. In addition, alternate Diego sacrifices his own leg. Lucy sacrifices her pure self, her pureness, to stopping Valentine and saving Steven, and Johnny sacrifices Gyro because Valentine could have brought another Gyro, but Johnny sacrifices Gyro for what? Johnny sacrifices Gyro for the perfect balance of selflessness and selfishness. Sacrifices Gyro for others as well as for himself. That is why Johnny Joestar at the end technically won. Anyways, characters grow in Steel Ball Run, that was the point of this. With that being said, you my friend have concluded watching this long, not so long video about Steel Ball Run. It's never enough to talk about some great depth in manga, especially for such a great grand story as Steel Ball Run. When I say the Steel Ball Run is one of my favorite stories, I mean that. I've been moving on and reading and watching more anime and manga and other pieces of mediums, so necessarily speaking, I'm not interested just in JoJo anymore. So coming to this conclusion that I have to move on from a story that meant so much to me for the past 3 years, it's kinda heartbreaking in a sense, but at the same time it's very moving because passionately speaking I am keeping myself entertained to the fullest. But Steel Ball Run would forever be my favorite manga. With that all being said, thank you so much Riverdude and the CEO of Project SBR for joining my channel. I love both of you and your part was amazing, and you just proved to me that no matter what I achieve in this existence, in this reality, I will never have a voice so charming as any of you have, and asserted your male dominance over my bitch ass. If you watched till now, you either are so passionate about Steel Ball Run or you are a subscriber of the channel, a loyal one of that. So I will just like to give a couple of words. I'll probably be taking a break from the channel, not because I'm not feeling it, but mostly because I want to enjoy summer, but as well as I want just to watch other stuff. And if you want to keep up with me, just please follow me on Twitter. And when I make my comeback, I'm sure you will enjoy me and the rest of it if you enjoy what I'm doing. But if you want to keep up with me, like I said, Twitter. Thank you for watching. Love you all. And
Pizza mozzarella, pizza mozzarella, rera 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 re. Pizza mozzarella, pizza mozzarella, rera 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 re. Pizza mozzarella, pizza mozzarella, rera 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 re. La gorgonzola, gorgonzola, zola 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 zola. Gorgonzola, gorgonzola, zola 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 zola. Pizza mozzarella, pizza mozzarella, rera rera.